Alrighty, so inspired by the Immortal John Hancock, I'm going to go into my own top 10 video for handheld and console failures, total commercial failures. Starting with the Nokia N-Gage. As you can see here, it was a phone slash handheld hybrid released in 2003, meant to compete with the Game Boy Advance. It was heavily marketed at places like GameStop, saying, "Oh, look, you can get this phone with a decent plan," and I think it ran on like AT&T or Singular, if I'm not mistaken. But it had some decent games. It had like Red Faction, which is the only way to play Red Faction on the go at the time, and really currently is the only mobile port that I'm aware of. It also has Sonic Game and had Sonic Advance released as Sonic N, another decent port. But it didn't do well at all. It may have been the fact that they tried to market it as a phone and a handle. I really don't know where they went wrong, but definitely did not sell well. Another handheld that did not do well, although had some decent games, was the Neo Geo Pocket / Pocket Color, meant to compete with the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy. I think it would have done better if it was backlit, but it had some decent games. Like it had SNK Fighters, you can see here. I think it had a Metal Slug title as well. So it's some decent games. Next one we're going to look at here before I jump into the Sega stuff is the Nintendo. Nintendo had a commercial failure? Yes, it did. It had the VirtualBoy. System that I purchased day one from Toys R Us. It looks kind of funny. It's an interesting system. Had some decent titles. It had Mario Tennis, Wario Land, as you can see here, was a decent game. I bought that day one. And Mario Tennis was the pack-in title. It also had games like Jack Bros, Mario Clash. I mean, it had some decent titles. I think it would have done better if it was a different color scheme. The red and black color scheme just did not do it justice at all. It's a decent system. I wish it would have done better. Maybe they'll release the VirtualBoy Virtual Console at some point, or maybe even a VirtualBoy Mini would be nice. Jumping into the Sega stuff, we're going to take a look at first the Sega CD. It was an add-on for the Sega Genesis. Worked with the Model 1 and Model 2. It did not work with the Model 3. Although I think the Model 3 was released by Majesco, that might have been part of the reason. But it had some decent games. It had like Sonic CD, which would go on to be ported to pretty much everything under the sun. A decent game, as you can see here. It's a really fun game. It had some not so great games, like Double Switch. A terrible game on the Sega CD, at least as far as like quality goes. But it would see a release, a revitalization, if you will, on the Nintendo Switch. I think it was also released on PS4 by Limited Run Games. So decent game. Now that it's been remastered and ported, it is a good game. It's fun. It's an FMV game for those who don't know. And I also had Popful Mail, which is another great Sega CD game. It also had Lunar. And I think Lunar 2 was also released on Sega CD. Popful Mail, although I don't have footage of it here, was a great game, and I think ORG, Limited Run Games, should release Popful Mail again and have it be on modern platforms. Another commercial failure from Sega. Sega's really batting out of the park at this point. Was the Sega 32X, and their add-on for the Sega Genesis. Again, compatible only with the Model 1 and Model 2 Genesis systems. Another system I bought day one, however, I had to return it because it didn't have the uh, composite cables. Composite cable. Sorry, the red, yellow, and white. I always get them mixed up. But anyway, I didn't have a TV that had those hookups, so I had to return it. Unfortunately, I wish I still had it. But it had some decent games. It had like Knuckles Chaotix, as you can see here. It had Tempo, a great game on 32X. It had Doom, Spider-Man, Virtua Fighter, Virtua Racing, Star Wars, you can see here. I mean, it had some really decent titles. It just didn't do well, I think, because it was ahead of its time. It used the standard AV we have today. TVs back then didn't have those, and so I think that might have been part of the reason it didn't do well, because nobody had a way to hook it up. But yeah, that's some decent games. So moving right along and sticking with the Sega theme of failed consoles. The first one we're going to look at here, actually have it here, is the Sega Saturn. It was released. It is a CD-based system. It was released before the Dreamcast. Had some decent titles. It had like Mass Destruction, as you can see here, a decent shooter, similar like Desert Strike. It had Sonic Jam, which is a Sonic compilation. It had Street Fighter vs. X-Men or X-Men vs. Street Fighter, as you can see here. Great arcade port. In fact, and I think it was an arcade perfect port to the Saturn. Now that game actually requires a RAM cartridge. This is an action replay. Goes in the cartridge slot. The action replay that I have here doubles as a cheat device, a RAM cartridge, memory cartridge, so I can actually save games on this here, the free games that support it. And it also lets you play imports. Excuse me. As well as you can play Japanese games on the Sega Saturn. So yeah, it had some decent games. I wish it would have done better, but it's all right. I mean, it couldn't. It was hard to make games for. I think it's part of the reason why it failed. Because it used two different processors and just used them weird, and just it didn't do well at all. Moving right along to another Sega failure, and that is the Sega Dreamcast. Another CD-based system came pretty much on the heels of the Sega Saturn. It did come with a modem. I don't have the modem here. But a decent system. Had 4 controller ports. Here's the controller. I mean, the Dreamcast in a lot of ways revolutionized gaming as we know it. It had the VMU here, a virtual memory unit. Save games on this. It also lets you like transfer games. You can also play mini games on it, which is kind of cool. It also showed you stats. So like games like Code Veronica, for instance, that was released on this. It showed your health status, which is kind of cool. But yeah, it really revolutionized gaming. I mean, you had games like Crazy Taxi 2, Dead or Alive 2, as you can see here in the footage. Should be right about here. With some great games. And it had like Phantasy Star Online, the first MMO online game. Again, revolutionary. I wish it would have done better. I wish all these systems really would have done better. Because these are some great systems. Okay, moving along away from this Sega stuff, we're going to take a look at a really obscure one here. The OUYA. The OUYA is an Android-based system, Android-based console. Lets you play Android games on your TV. Now, the cool thing about the OUYA is that games are still being made for it, even today. As you can see here, some of the footage. You've got some games that were released in the last 2 years. So you got some decent games being made. You have a storefront that still works. As you can see here, it works really well. So yeah, the OUYA has been resurrected from the dead. I mean, it's still a dead system. Don't get me wrong, but to see it come back after so long is really cool. Okay, sticking with the microsystems here. Next commercial failure is from Sony. We actually got a couple of them here. But this one is the PlayStation Classic. As you can see, it's pretty small. Pretty small here. Here's another size comparison. I mean, that's really small. Anyway, this was a commercial failure. I think primarily because one, emulation issues, and two, this controller is not an analog controller. It should have been. I mean, I'm glad that it came with two controllers. Don't get me wrong, that's really cool, but they should have been analog controllers. But I bought this one. They're blowing them out at $20 a pop at Fred Meyer, I think is where I bought it from. I bought it primarily because, well, I really wanted a micro console, but also because with a little work and a USB stick, you can really open up the console that allow you to play a multitude of systems on this thing. And it's small, it's compact, and if you put a USB hub on this thing, you can play two-player, tons of games. It opens it up. But it does have great games stock, like Rayman here, as you can see. It's got Resident Evil, Persona, Tekken 3 is an amazing game on this, although I wish it wasn't the PAL version, because it does run a little bit slow, but still a decent game. A decent set of games on its own. Huge library. If you, with a little work, a USB stick, got some great titles. So glad I've got that. And the last system, actually technically it's a 2-for-1. Last system I'm going to talk about from Sony, that was a total commercial failure, was the PlayStation Vita TV and the PlayStation Vita. The Vita TV allows you to play Vita games on the television. And you have PlayStation Vita meant to compete with the Nintendo 3DS. This was the hardcore gamer system to have. This is a borderline PS2, PS3 handheld system. Had some great titles, really great titles that we didn't see anywhere else. It had Uncharted Golden Abyss, as you can see here in the footage. Killzone Mercenary. Hands down the best looking game on the platform. Had great games like Axiom Verge, a great indie game. So I had some decent titles on this thing. I wish it would have done better. I wish I had the support from Sony. But after what happened with the PSP, I could see why. It didn't have a lot of backing. But it could have been a real game changer had Sony put the support behind it that it deserved. It did a lot of things that the PSP didn't do. It had dual analog sticks. It's got a touch screen. I mean, it had a lot of potential. That's been a look at my top 10 commercial failure handhelds and consoles. And I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. As always, till next time. Take care. Happy gaming.